What if I told you that it's not the outreach, the script, or you that are the problem, but the people you reach out to? If you would reach out to people who actually need your service and have never received an outreach message before, it's pretty likely that you will get a reply and probably also sign the client. But the problem is that everybody is using the same lead sources and is contacting the same leads. So 80% of the outreach messages worldwide are sent to 20% of the people. But what about the other 80% of people who have never received a cold message before? Those are the people who are harder to target but easier to book into calls. So in this video, I will show you my favorite strategies to target people who have never been pitched before. So let's dive into it. All right, so let's talk about the problem with these prospecting softwares again. The problem is that everybody is using softwares like D7 Lead Finder, Apollo, Busy AI, or for example, Sales Handy. And these softwares are great. I've used them before. But the problem is that all of them have massive databases, including a ton of leads from each industry and niche. The problem is that these leads are not unlimited, right? These leads are limited to the database. Therefore, all the leads that are inside these databases for different niches have been contacted before, especially the first 5 to 2,000 you will find, and especially if you target a niche like real estate, solar, gyms, or any other super saturated niche. So no matter which software you use, those leads have received a million cold messages, DMs, and emails, because these are the people who show up if you search for a different keyword. And the problem is that most agencies are lazy, so they just contact the first 500 people who show up. Therefore, they always contact the same people. Okay, so I hope you get the point. But this is a problem which can only be solved if we put a bit more effort into finding the right people and scraping and prospecting people who have never been pitched before. So let's dive into the strategies. What we are using here are manual strategies. They can be automated to a certain extent, but I recommend you to just put a bit more time into finding those people manually with the strategies I'm going to show you, because if you do so, you will find a ton of people who never been pitched before, and therefore it's much easier to book more appointments with less volume and less calls or emails you send. So the first strategy is also one of my favorite ones, and it's all about finding people on Google Maps and then searching them up on LinkedIn, Instagram, or figuring out their mail address, right? And here we have to be careful, because if you just type in, for example, med spa in New York, the problem is that the same thing happened here as well, right? All of those people have received a ton of messages. So instead of going through the table on the left side, we basically scroll in here, and you see all of these red dots are basically med spa companies. So what we do here is we basically try to find them manually and not rely on the table right here, because a ton of these do not show up on the left side. Okay, so we basically just go through here, and there are like more than that, right? This is just like a small amount. So after you scrapped all of them, you can then go into another city right here, run the keyword again, and then there will be another a ton of people showing up here as well, right? Cool. So let's show you how this works. So we basically find one of them. Let's go for this one right here. Okay. Then this table opens on the left side. Then we basically find their website right here. Then we go to the About Us page to find the owner's name, right? Because what most people do is they basically just send an email to the mail address, which will be displayed at the bottom, or they basically just call this number. But again, this is what everybody else does. So we try to find the owner's name. So we click on About Us. Let's see. Right, here's the owner's name, right? So we just copy and paste the owner's name. Usually there is always an About Us page. If you cannot find the About Us page, try to find the imprint or the legal pages. All right, then you just copy and paste the owner's name. You go to LinkedIn, right here. You type in the name, you hit enter, and there he is, right? You can open the profile. You see that's the CEO of this med spa company. And you see he only has 190 connections. Therefore, he probably never received an outreach message before. Because if you just search up med spa company on LinkedIn, he will probably not show up, right? But since we found him on Google Maps, found his name, and then we searched him up on LinkedIn, there is a high chance that this guy will be a good fit and that this guy will also reply to your message, because he only has very few connections, right? That's the first method. As I said, it was a bit lucky that I immediately found his name. If you cannot find his name, what you can do as well is you can just copy and paste the name of the med spa right here. Let's go for the full one. Then you type it in Google and then you put owner behind it. Right? And this AI overview usually is pretty shit, but for these kind of things, it's pretty good, right? You see, there's the name again. So with nearly any business, you will find their name either on the website or if you do a quick search on Google, which will then allow you to contact those people on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn, where they probably never received a message before. Method number 2 is also on LinkedIn, and this method is all about using super unique keywords. Because if you go to Sales Navigator, which is LinkedIn's database tool, what most people do is they just go to the search bar and type in, for example, agency owner. The problem here is the same as with these prospecting tools. All the people who show up on the first 20 or even 500 pages receive a million messages because these are the people who immediately show up if you search for a certain keyword. And for this method, we have to understand how this Sales Navigator search bar works. It does not only allow us to type in a keyword for the niche, it also allows us to type in a certain frame or a word that our target audience uses on their profile. Okay, so instead of typing in agency owner, what we could type in is, for example, helping gyms, right? Because this is a term that a ton of agencies use who help gyms with lead generation, for example. Okay, and yeah, a ton of agencies basically say in their profile, we help gyms or we are helping gyms at an extra 20 members per month. So this is the exact frame that those people use on their profile. And you see, there are a ton of agencies who already show up. Additionally, we can now also play around with these filters because you see there are already a ton of agencies that have the phrase helping gyms on their profile. But if we want to get better results, we can now open up the filters on the left side, basically filter down for headcount below 10. Then we can go for industry. And here we can, for example, select marketing services because then it will only show us agencies or people who sell marketing services and have the phrase helping gyms on their profile. And now you see the results become less, but now they are super targeted. And this is a really good list of agencies, which probably never got pitched before. And we can also do the same for real estate. So for real estate, we could, for example, type in sell and buy houses. Let's see. And again, you see a ton of real estate companies showing up here, which have the keyword sell and buy houses on their profile. So again, we can do the same here. We can play around with certain filters, but the whole point here is to basically use phrases which they use on their profile instead of just searching for the industry. Okay, another strategy I want to show you, which is tightly connected to finding people on LinkedIn, is all about reaching out on channels where they never received a message before. Because it's not only about reaching out to people who never got pitched before, but it's enough to reach out on a channel where they at least never received a message. Because even if they receive a ton of spam emails, if they never got pitched on Instagram, for example, there is a high chance of getting a reply and booking a call. So with this strategy, we basically try to find somebody in our ICP. In this case, I just searched the keyword med spa. Again, it makes more sense, as I showed you in the last strategy, to basically search for a phrase they have on their profile, not the niche, but it's enough for this example. Then we just find somebody who looks interesting, for example, her. Then we click on the profile, and then we try to find her website, or we try to find any contact information she provides, so we can then contact her on a hidden channel, right? So we want to avoid the obvious channels. In this case, for example, LinkedIn would be the obvious channel in this case. And we want to message her on a channel where she never got pitched before. Okay, so in this case, she has her website linked. If you cannot find her website, you can also just copy and paste the name, search it up on Google, and then there probably will be, it will show up right here. Okay, so in this case, here's the website. What you want to do is you want to scroll down to the bottom and you want to try to find their mail address, their Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn, right? In this case, she has everything linked. That's even better. If you cannot find it, you can try to search up the website's name, or you can try to find her profile, her personal profile on Instagram and Facebook. The whole point here is to find a channel where they have less subscribers so we can easily reach out to them. In this case, for example, Instagram or maybe even Facebook. Let's see. Yeah, both channels would make a ton of sense because there are not many followers here. So they probably never got pitched on these channels before, right? So that's another really, really good strategy. So find those people on an obvious channel, find their website, and then try to find their Instagram or Facebook to reach out on a hidden channel where they never received a message before. Okay, the last strategy I want to show you in this video is how you can find people on Facebook. Okay, what most people do here is they basically just go to the search bar, they type in, for example, agency owners, then they click on groups, and then they join a bunch of groups and try to find people inside. Problem is that all of these groups are full of spam, right? You won't be able to find any group which isn't full of spam. So instead of searching for the keyword for the niche, what we want to do is we want to type in a keyword that the niche uses to find groups that they are interested in. For example, if you want to target agency owners, it makes sense to look at the softwares which they use on a daily basis and try to find groups which are around those softwares, because these are the groups where those people are active in. For example, the most common agency software is Go High Level. So we can go and type in Go High Level agency owners, this one, for example. And now you see that this group is a bit bigger, but you see there are a ton of real posts inside and there is basically no spam, right? These are all real people asking real questions, and most of them are agency owners, right? So what you can do now is you can basically go through the questions, see if any of them is in your IFCP, also go through the comments, the likes, and basically try to find a ton of people, right? And you see that most people here are actually running agencies, so they would be the perfect fit if you target agency owners. Another strategy I have been using is to find a competitor, so somebody who is going for the same target audience than you, and just look at their post and try to copy and paste what their appointment setters do. Okay, so if you, for example, target, let's say you target agencies again, the biggest competitor is probably Charlie Morgan, right? Because he's pretty known in the space and he's helping agencies with a ton of stuff. So if you go to Charlie Morgan's profile right here, what you can do is you can basically go to the likes and the comments and see how many people are actual agency owners, right? For example, this post got 42 likes and 3 comments, so we can go through here and we can basically find people who are agency owners, right? For example, this guy, let's see. Yeah, he runs an agency, right? There we go. You already have his website, you already have his Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So this would be probably a really good fit. And these are, again, people you won't find in the search bar. You will only find through comment, likes, and private groups. Okay, and this is something you can continue doing. So you can just keep going through the post, check the likes, basically right here, check the likes, go to all of these people, and a ton of them will be agency owners, because why should somebody else like a post which is about agencies if they're not running an agency themselves? So the last strategy I have been using, and you can use as well if you target local companies, for example, gyms or any other companies who are attached to a certain location, is to basically go to the Facebook Marketplace, which is right here, and then basically search for something that the target audience sells. If you go for gyms, you could, for example, type in gym equipment right here. A ton of them will be private people, but if you scroll a bit down, you see there are a ton of really expensive things which are in gym rooms, right? So those people are gym owners. So you can go through here and you can just try to find people who actually have gyms. This guy, for example, go on their profile, find a name, and then either contact them on Facebook directly or use the strategy I showed you before, find those people on a channel and then contact them on another channel where they never received a message before. But these are basically all the strategies I have been using, and they work pretty well for me. Again, I was using these prospecting tools before as well. At one point, it stopped working for me, so I basically switched to the strategies I showed you, and they instantly increased my reply, booking, and also closing rate. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you are an agency owner making less than 20K per month, then I might have an opportunity for you, because right now I'm working closely with 184 agencies, helping them add an extra 10 to 15K a month in profit to their agency. If this sounds interesting, then make sure to check out the link below this video and watch the short demo video, which you will find on the link page. If this also seems interesting, then feel free to book a call with me or my team, and I'm looking forward to talk to you.